I found, the more I listened to these stories of followers within the movement, that their lives had sunk to such a level of despair and brokenness that they could no longer cope with the real world. That there are now, I believe, tens of millions of people within this country, and certainly anyone who has spent time in Ohio, is aware of this, who have been completely dispossessed, disenfranchised. If you visit areas around the Rust Belt, these towns look like the developing world. The streets are potholed, the houses are crumbling, the schools are dysfunctional, the downtown stores are boarded up, and the great hulking dinosaurs, rusting hulks of factories lie broken and unused. And with that, of course, has brought all of the ills that comes when communities break down. Domestic abuse, struggles with alcoholism, broken families, and coupled with this flight of manufacturing jobs, and of course they've not been replaced. I mean, steel workers, or instead of making $50 an hour with benefits, people are suddenly making $16 an hour without benefits in places like Walmart, if they can even make $16. And of course, both spouses have to work. There's no future among the working class that their children will be able to get any kind of job or have any kind of future that will even equal the one that they used to have. And that kind of Weimarization of the American working class has thrust these people, of course, first into despair, but ultimately propel them into rage. And I think if you listen closely to right-wing talk radio, the popularity of it is that it's an expression of this rage. The message is, America used to be a great place, but then all those liberals and immigrants and homosexuals and feminists came and took it away from you, and we're going to get it back. That's the fundamental message of like a Rush Limbaugh or an O'Reilly or any of these people. And that's deeply attractive. I know that the book Thomas Franks wrote talks about these people voting or against their interests. I have a slightly different take on that. I think the Democratic Party walked out on these people a long time ago. NAFTA was given to us not by a Republican administration, but by Bill Clinton. The end of welfare was handed to the American people by the Clinton administration. The deregulation of the FCC, which is not a small phenomenon, was handed to us by the Clinton administration. And the anger towards liberals, which is real, I don't think is misplaced. Because just as I had to deal with the hypocrisy of the liberal church, which felt that it would speak on behalf of the poor, they have to deal with the Democratic Party, which traditionally protected their interest, stopped protecting their interest once they realized they could get the same funding that the Republican Party could, but continued to speak as if they were protecting their interests. And half of my family comes from small mill towns in Maine, so this has a kind of personal element to it. I think that anger towards liberals is not wrong. I think that they were betrayed, that they've been betrayed by all of us. And what has happened? What's happened is what usually happens when in a society where you have a huge segment of that society dispossessed. People increasingly can't cope with the real world. There's less and less assistance, federal assistance, state assistance, community support for them to cope with the real world. And so they are ushered easily by demagogues, which is what a figure like Pat Robertson is, into a non-reality-based belief system, into a world of magic, into a world where God has a plan for them, and Jesus intervenes several times a day in their life, and God will not only protect them, but make them successful. And once they've been ushered into this non-reality-based belief system, once they embrace a world of magic, they embrace a world that is essentially irrational. They become unreachable.
You're listening to Chris Hedges on American Fascists, the Radical Christian Right. This is AR. You can order copies of this program by calling our toll-free number, 1-800-444-1977. That's 1-800-444-1977. Or you can order online on our website, alternativeradio.org. That's alternativeradio.org.
And I think one of the most pernicious and dangerous things that we as a society have allowed to happen is the creation of these hermetic information systems, Christian radio and broadcasting, that indoctrinates these people on a 24-hour basis. And everything that they hear or see, whether it's news, entertainment, health and beauty tips, spiritual guidance, comes through this ideological prism. This world where lies are true, where facts are interchangeable with opinions. And that, of course, is what creationism is about. Creationism is not about an alternative. It's not about presenting another side. There is no other side to evolution. America is the only industrialized nation in the world that raises questions about the validity of evolution. What this is about the destruction of dispassionate, honest, intellectual inquiry. It's about the destruction of science. It is about creating within the mainstream a belief in magic. It is about removing people from a reality-based world and ushering them into a world where people can believe whatever they want to believe. And I'm going to read you a small section of Hannah Arendt's Origin of Totalitarianism that I used to begin the chapter on creationism called The War on Truth. Before they seize power and establish a world according to their doctrines, totalitarian movements conjure up a lying world of consistency, which is more adequate to the needs of the human mind than reality itself, in which, through sheer imagination, uprooted masses can feel at home and are spared the never-ending shocks which real life and real experiences deal to human beings and their expectations. The force possessed by totalitarian propaganda, before the movements have the power to drop iron curtains to prevent anyone's disturbing by the slightest reality the gruesome quiet of an entirely imaginary world, lies in its ability to shut the masses off from the real world. This is the phenomena of creationism. This is the phenomena of dominionism, or the ideology that is being foisted upon this country by the radical Christian white. I, of course, don't give this movement religious legitimacy, however earnest, however well-meaning and decent many of the followers are, because I look at them as being manipulated by very callous, cold, and sophisticated demagogues like James Dobson, who have figured out that by manipulating people's despair, they can not only get rich, but they can get powerful. And I think that it's important for those of us who care about our open society and who want to fight to protect our democracy, that we make this distinction between those people who are being used by this movement and those figures at the top of the movement, like Pat Robertson, who have tapped into this despair, understood it, and used it for deeply nefarious and dark ends. All of you should take time to listen to Christian radio and broadcasting. It's deeply disturbing. The ideology it promotes is one in which people like me have no place in this society. One of the arguments, and I think you see it within segments of the Democratic Party, is that there should be an effort to reach out to this movement and engage in a dialogue with it, to try and bring evangelicals, of which there are 80 to 100 million in this country, back into the Democratic fold. I think this is a disastrous mistake for this reason. When you deal with a movement whose leaders preach that there are only two acceptable ways of being. Either